What happened now? What's happened?
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the fourth video in our series for the month for craniofacial awareness, where we are talking about what is the difference between syndromatic and non-syndromatic craniosynostosis. So right out of the gate, let's kind of define what the two of these things are. And I'll go first with syndromatic craniosynostosis, and this is according to the Mayo Clinic. Syndromatic craniosynostosis is caused by certain genetic syndromes such as Apert syndrome, Pfeiffer syndrome, or Crouzon's syndrome, which can affect your baby's skull development. So what that means is that there is a genetic syndrome that has caused a mutation along some gene that is recognized for that mutation, that one of the symptoms of that condition happens to be craniosynostosis.
So that's syndromatic craniosynostosis, and in comparison, non-syndromatic craniosynostosis non-syndromatic craniosynostosis is the most common type of craniosynostosis, and its cause is unknown, although it's thought to be a combination of genetic and environmental factors.
So, unlike syndromatic, where it's a named syndrome that has some malformation on a part of the chromosome, this is where the craniosynostosis is usually standalone, to where the only issue that the child may have will be craniosynostosis and anything that results from that fusion. So there usually aren't any indicators, and there's a lot of genetic testing that goes into all this. And they look for things like Goldenhaars and Pfeiffers and Crouzons and Aperts based on the type of cranio that the child's presenting with. Now, where things get really interesting is where we have situations like what part of Zoe's actual medical diagnosis is, which is syndromatic, non-syndromatic bicoronal craniosynostosis. So we've been building on her diagnosis over the last few days as we've been talking about things. And the reason that our daughter has syndromatic, non-syndromatic is because there's another caveat to syndromatic craniosynostosis, and that's where there are other things that present or are apparent with the child that usually only present with a syndrome. Those are usually things like polydactyly and syndactyly. That's polydactyly means many, dactyly means fingers or toes. So polydactyly would be extra fingers or extra toes, and syndactyly is where they are actually fused together. And Zoe actually has both of those. So she has a little bit of multiple presentations for things like Aperts and Crouzons, and they've thought of Goldenhaars, and she's been tested for all of them, and she doesn't have any of the genetic markers. So that presentation in itself, mixed with the fact that she has craniosynostosis, is how we get syndromatic, non-syndromatic bicoronal craniosynostosis for Zoe.
And it is definitely a diagnosis in progress too. The genetic field is so young, and there's still so much that kind of needs to be caught up in the medical world when it comes to what is possible and what the genetic factors and reasons are for the physical presentations. And so all of the genes that might be possible might be part of the reason why craniosynostosis occurs, most likely haven't been found yet. A very rough estimate is maybe 50% of the genes have been found that are associated with cranio, which means there are a large percentage of kids like Zoe in varying degrees who have different elements of symptoms that are presented as well as the craniosynostosis, but there isn't a provided syndrome already labeled for them. And maybe in the future she will have a syndrome that will be associated with her genes.
And I think that's another thing that makes us a little different where we currently are. We've been going through this journey for 5 years, and very early on we just wanted a name of a syndrome. We wanted to know it was Aperts or Goldenhaars or Crouzons or something in that family of congenital disorders. Just to have a name, to have something to say, yes, this is our daughter Zoe, and instead of giving her incredibly long medical diagnosis, we could say she has APERS. After a while and after a multitude of testing with no answers, we've kind of resolved to the fact that Zoe's just Zoe. She is who she is, and what she has going on is very unique to her. Some people like to say that their child is 1 in a million, but with all the genetic testing that Zoe has had, we actually have the paperwork to show that Zoe is actually about 1 in 7.61 trillion. There is no one else like Zoe, and that's pretty cool. I'm okay with that.
There's also the element of treating what we already know it needs to be treated. I mean, she has been seen by specialists. She's undergone so many tests, and as far as elements that need to be treated, they're being addressed. They're being treated, and I feel like having a label might make it a little bit easier if we had one specific label to have for everything that she has. But on the other side, it's like, well, she is who she is, and she continues to show us who she is as she gets older and as the years pass. And we've kind of grown to accept that fact that we won't always get to see what she's going to be like in the future, or even have an idea of what she's going to be like in the future. And that's just kind of how it is. We're on a day-by-day basis just to see how she grows and who she grows up to be. And it's kind of exciting too. So this has been day 4 of Craniosynostosis Awareness Month. If you missed it, make sure to go back and check our first 3 videos answering various questions about Cranio. And make sure to come back tomorrow for day 5 when we answer a new question about craniosynostosis.
And to learn a little bit more about us, you can also follow along on our blog at craniofamilyblog.com.
Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.